Heinrich Bedford-Strohm is the head of the highest council of the Lutheran Church, the EKD Council, and he has announced that his organization is going to buy a ship and send it to the Mediterranean Sea to be a second sea watch, bothering the Italians and other Mediterranean countries with their rescue efforts, which are in reality thinly disguised human trafficking effort. So the Catholic Church has already chimed in and said that they are also going to support this mission, and not just those two churches. In fact, as everything in Europe, in the EU particularly, but this has moved also on the national level. Accountability is dispersed as best as these people can. So we won't see a ship with the name Lutheran Church ship. We will see a ship that is carried by an association that's to be founded now and is an umbrella for diverse sports clubs, charities, schools, and church communities and other organizations that may choose to join. As I said, this is a model that repeats itself from time to time, and there is a name for it. I mean, it's not an official name, and hardly anybody makes this link, but there is a rhetorical figure for this, and that's the civil society, Zivilgesellschaft. When there is a protest march or some organization that is politically very active or whatever, and you have no clear accountability, what the media then calls it is the civil society doing something. The civil society stands up against the riot. The civil society protects refugees, and so on and so on. And what this civil society usually is composed of are trade unions, are churches, are charities, and are all these NGOs, the usual suspects. They just come together, form these off-the-cuff associations, clubs, whatever you want to call it, societies, and then it's called civil society, as if the state had nothing to do with it. In this case, the church is a corporation of the public law, which means it is a part of the state. But if you are a German, you are hected never to call it a part of the state for reasons. That means there are no reasons. It just hector us not to call it that, but it is. It's a part of the state, and this state unit is now to purchase a ship to harass the Italians and the Greek and so on. The cost is estimated as being somewhat either in the higher six-figure range or in the lower seven-figure range. The initiative goes back to the Lutheran Church Day. I have made an entire video about this. You can watch it. It's linked in the description box. The Lutheran Church meets up again and again to have these festivals, and it's more like Woodstock with strange workshops and people listening to music and you know, do some pottery or whatever. It's the most ludicrous thing. This year around, they have even changed their usual colors. A Lutheran church used to have purple that was introduced after the loss of the First World War. Prior to that, the national colors of Germany were also the colors of the Lutheran Church. After the loss of the First World War, they did not want to adopt the modern flag color, the black, red, gold stripes, because those stand for democracy. They were a symbol of the nationalists that fought off the Napoleon occupation, and they wanted a parliament back in the day in the 19th century. And after the First World War, these colors were used again for the flag, and they symbolize democracy and the people's ambition to have a parliament and all of these things. So the church back then decided to have purple as a color, just because it is neutral and doesn't take a position either pro or against democracy. This changed again when Hitler took power. Then they again took the national colors. That was this red flag, the white circle, and the swastika inside. After the 12 years, they returned to purple until the Church Day, the last Church Day festival. And they have a very strange tradition there, apparently, because they are a part of the state but don't admit it openly and stuff. They still have resolutions. And they are political resolutions, and one of them was this proposal to buy a ship to rescue refugees from the Mediterranean Sea. It was introduced by a Green Party politician called Sven Giegold. He is a member of the EU Parliament, and he has managed to call the Mediterranean Sea the most deadly waters on the planet twice. Yes, the text reads twice that the Mediterranean Sea were the most deadly waters on Earth. The resolution includes not just to rescue the refugees, but also to find an EU solution and to demand the decriminalization of their activities. So the EU solution is about, you see all this blackmailing every time when the ships, like the sea-watch ships, roam the coasts of the Mediterranean states like Greece, Italy, Spain, and so on, and they are looking for harbors, and then the blackmailing begins. Who is going to take the people on board? And this has to be negotiated again and again when a ship comes along. And the resolution demands that there is a fixed key, so that this doesn't attract media attention or anything anymore, and it's just some formal procedure that's always applied, so that always people are taken from the Mediterranean Sea into the EU Schengen area and distributed according to a fixed key within the nations. What I also found interesting were the other resolutions of the day, because one is more ridiculous than the other, and it's mind-boggling how these people think they can just collect some signatures on a strange music fair, workshop, exhibition, whatever, and usher a gaggle of them into a room just to vote on whatever ridiculous text they present. But they do, and some were actually unsuccessful. They did either not gain enough signatures, or they did not make the cut of the votes that would have been required to pass the resolution. But 10 were. And I have a small selection of them, so you see how ridiculous the proposals are that the church has, and also shows how the church, the Lutheran Church, has already become an arm of the Green Party. So one is save lives with interreligious dialogue. And of course, this is another support for migration stuff. It is already sponsored by a group that is into furthering the interests of refugees and migrants. And this resolution reads, refugees must find a religiously diverse home. That's quite astonishing for a statement of a church, isn't it? I mean, I could do without the Lutherans for once. Then the protection of minorities in the Middle East should be centerpiece of foreign aid and foreign policy. I'm very sure that this is a BDS kind of thing. I don't think they really care about minorities in general, and I think no political leader will cave to foreign aid gains, no matter what. I think foreign aid is misguided anyway. So that's the second demand. The third is stop weapon delivery to Turkey. Turkey is actually still part of the NATO. The best resolution so far is the all-encompassing God's goods for free. Because here you see the entire nature of this all. Water, medicine, food, homes, and so on should all be free, because they are basic needs that are fulfilled with these things. And it even says the logic of capitalism is division. And the German word for division is means both sharing and division. So the following sentence makes only sense if you know that. But not people share, they get shared, divided. So capitalism is evil. It's causing division and doesn't share. It's bad, 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 bad. And the solution is that the fruits of God's creation should just be distributed. Then there is a resolution securing future instead of building up weaponry and to destroy everything and destruction. So instead of destruction, sorry, that's a cumbersome translation, but I had to act quick. It starts with, "We children of peace, born after World War II and eligible to vote at the time of the fall of the wall, admit our guilt." A lot in the sentence. So they have probably an issue with the fall of the wall because the wrong side won. And that's why they are so interested about peace. The wrong side won, and they feel guilty. And of course, guilt is the currency of the day. America should be shamed for killing all these Native Americans that were actually not killed by Americans but by diseases. Everybody should be ashamed for this or that thing. And yes, you should be ashamed about being eligible to vote at the time of the fall of the wall, because then you could have maybe changed the way this was done. You could have found a way to have stopped it. We haven't been able to create peace, justice, and the protection of the creation for our children and all who follow to inherit a livable earth. So this entire clip bucket is being thrown at you then, and the hot demands read, lower the expenses for the military 7% per year. Half of the savings should go into the fight against poverty in our rich nations, our very rich nations, and half of the savings go to the poor. No, the NGOs of the United Nations. You mind you. Then there's a proposal that suggests a redistribution system under the guise of the climate church. The CO2 emissionists are supposed to pay as much taxes to finance €400 for an average family per month. And this is going to be stable because for whatever reason the CO2 reduction will result in a higher tax rate per the emission quantity. So for whatever reason, we end up with €400 per family, and this is going to be stable. And this is just an obvious communist redistribution system that has no interest in changing anything about CO2 emissions. This has absolutely nothing to do with Christianity. There's not one resolution that has something to do with renovation of churches or protecting Christians specifically from persecution or anything that has some mild connection to Christianity. No Bible studies, nada. Then there is the affordable homes for everybody resolution. It's for me just a repetition of the already mentioned all of God's goods to everybody. This one specifically mentions that the state should build all the homes, and the private sector must be regulated to build the good, nice homes that everybody can afford. So prohibitions will make all these investors turn out high quality, low price homes for everybody. They have no idea that they're actually just driving these investors out of the country. I mean, this is really a big thing right now. The rents go up through the roof, and people don't have enough money to pay the rent. plus the refugees come in to take the space. All this expropriation debate that we also have is driving these investors out of the country, plus the endless regulation and so on. Wow. So there is not a resolution for steps to be taken for animal protection. Anyway, so security and trust in digital society is the next resolution, and that is actually the only sensible one. For whatever reason, they have spoken about the right of encryption so that everybody can communicate with each other and without restriction, and that this was important for democracy and privacy and all of these things. And they are right. But I think this will be brushed aside very quickly when you say, well, but then Nazis talk to each other and you don't know. So this will be brushed aside very quickly anyway. You won't see Bedford-Strohm to hurry to get this into practice. He will most certainly do anything to get more poverty into the country, so that the charities that belong to the churches get more donations, and so on and so on. And then the true face of this organization, and I mean the church, comes through. There is a resolution about the Paris Climate Change Agreement, or anti-climate change agreement, whatever you want to call it, the Paris Treaty. The demands are climate protection law should be created already in this year, 2019, which is supposed to sanction unspecified transgressors across various sections of the economy. That means that is something about, just make any regulation, just stifle any economic growth, destroy businesses, just something. They don't even specify who is, doing something that destroys the climate. They just want any regulation. That's something that struck me already in 2007 when you had all this, all the banking crash. Some people just call for any regulation. They don't care what is prohibited. They want just other people to have a yoke on their neck. And the second demand is that the net zero goal should already be met 2035 and not just 2050. The net zero goal means a country is supposed to filter from the air through the woodland they have as much CO2 as they produce. For a densely packed country like Germany, this is completely impossible. It's like asking this of Hong Kong. It's ludicrous. You need countries like Brazil or China, for example, that have vast places where the ecological system can actually filter the CO2 out of the air to kind of level at that goal. But it is decided apparently in the stupid Paris Climate Agreement, and they demand that we are even earlier in meeting this ridiculous goal. So the next resolution is to shut down at least half of the coal power plants by 2025. That's not too far away. The fourth is secure all villages threatened by coal mining, as well as the Hambacher Forst woodlands. I have also made a video about the Hambacher Forst riots. There are Antifa types in this area that actually belongs to the Energy Power Corporation, RWE. And these rioters, they attack the police, they attack the workers of RWE. People were hospitalized. It's a very violent group, and they have all the sympathies of the media and also apparently of the church. So they get this piece of land protected for no particular reason, because the next demand in the same resolution is taxing climate active emissions and work on an EU-wide solution. Again, this is about regulation for the sake of it, and it's not just that Germany should suffer from it, but they want to smother the economy all across the continent. Subsidies for anti-environmental and anti-climate companies should be cut. I even agree with that. support Aufwuchs, and that's a word creation that makes no sense. That doesn't exist in normal speech. It just means upgrowth. So support upgrowth of, I mean, that's a verbatim translation, obviously. Support upgrowth of international climate protection finances, including compensation and adjustment payments. I don't know who is compensated, adjusted, blah, blah, blah. I suppose this is some trick to channel money to Bangladesh. Somebody gets wet feet because of the annual flood, and they cry for money, and so you have to send the dollars over. These are the kind of resolutions we see from the church, and what is quite troubling about this is that one of them, buying a ship for 1 million euro approximately, is going forward. And I don't know how this is going to end, if the church is going to become ever more a political pressure group. It is a part of the state formally, even though we may not say it. And they have a lot of power. I think they have absolutely nothing to do with Christianity anymore at this point. And I hate to say it, but I think it is advisable for Christians to actually found their own churches now. To leave that organizations, both the Lutheran Church, I mean that foremost, but also I think very soon you will realize the Catholic Church is unsavable either. Leave these churches, rent a room. You can meet up on Sundays on your own. You can study the Bibles on your own. There's just no point in supporting these people that have absolutely nothing to say about biblical morals, about raising children, about anything that has something to do with how Christians used to live for hundreds of years. They are a political organization, as if it was drafted on a board by Jill Stein, all on her own, and it's pressuring politics in a way that I wouldn't have imagined 10 years ago. Environmentalism was never voted in big time. They always had about 10% or something. But now it's just the main religion of our elites. The rest of us has to somehow follow, even though we hate it all. That's how things are at this point. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you soon. Bye.